All right.
And then we have I solidified the text with Kevin, our contact at Homage, and after we do this, I'm gonna schedule a tweet
Okay.
for our giveaway with them.
And then do we want to start? We could talk about this offline.
Yeah, I think the next episode we'll get the copy set from the new place.
Okay.
And start figuring that out. All right, let's sync up in 3, 2, 1. Wes Goldberg, cold open question for you. A lot going on in the basketball world. The New York Liberty won the title. The WNBA PA has opted out of their labor contract, so a lot to come there. A lot of injury news around the NBA with Chris Middleton hurt, Max Strus hurt, a lot of stuff going on right now. But I got to ask you, just a bit of less serious news before we get into predictions and some extension talk today. Nike and the NBA and the WNBA have sealed a 12-year extension. That means Nike is going to continue to be the provider, the maker, the designer of jerseys, and everything you can buy legally. NBA that is not, a Etsy thing or something. It's going to be from Nike. How do you feel about the Nike era of them setting the template for what basketball, the aesthetic of basketball really looks like?
So their greatest accomplishment was not being Adidas and getting rid of the sleeved jerseys that nobody liked. That was the thing that I think ended the Adidas relationship, at least from a public standpoint.
You mean LeBron ripping the sleeves every time he played in that black jersey wasn't a good look because he just, they were too tight. No one liked them, it seemed.
And they replaced them with these City Edition jerseys, which, I am probably one of the first people on Twitter to start bashing jerseys. We did a segment on this show where I literally just went through all 30 of them and
Cooked them
just
all.
burnt all of them. But it's sort of like the NBA's version of the preseason rankings in college football, where it's just here for you to hate it. That's what it exists for, and that's what I think City Edition jerseys are for. They exist for you to hate it. They exist for us to, before the rollout of the Christmas Day games or figuring out what the schedule release is going to be, or as we're starting to prepare for the regular season, we just have nothing else to talk about. Hey, here's a bunch of jerseys that are butt ugly. Hate them. Hate them online. Please, and talk about how much you hate them, because at least you're talking about us. And if the City Edition jersey has accomplished anything, it's just one more thing for us to talk about on the NBA calendar. That said, they need to do a better job at them because they're so ugly. And so if you're going to do the City Edition jerseys, that's fine. But I hope within this contract for the next 12 years, there's some stipulations such as they can't suck.
Like an opt-out clause if the jerseys are bad. The number one thing I would ask for, Wes, in this is give me Christmas edition jerseys back.
Without sleeves.
Yeah, no sleeves. I don't
I'd
need
be
the
good
sleeves.
with that.
But if people go look this up, the Cavs Christmas Day jersey, for instance, it would have been the Christmas of 2016, the year after they won the finals. It's the first Durant year. They played Golden State on Christmas Day. It was a great game. That game, incredibly fun with a lot of great shot making and a great Richard Jefferson dunk. Mm-hmm. The Cavs Christmas Day jerseys that year were awesome. And then it's just now any big jersey that isn't the standard jersey just feels bad. And it's just the whole NBA, this would be what I would say to try to be somewhat kind about it. I fully understand from a business perspective why Nike and Fanatics are two of the biggest partners you would want to have to do all this stuff, because they have scale, they have infrastructure, they have the events made with Fanatics Fest. Now, there's a lot to like about that. But it's just so uninspiring to have this be the thrust of your partnership from a big, expansive corporate sense. I get it, and for Nike, this is a big corporate win considering their stock prices been in a real tumble the last several months. Mm-hmm. But from just what people are going to get their money, what fans are going to be able to spend their money on. That's what bums me out. It's you're not likely to get anything particularly. You're gonna have to go find outward sellers and pay more of a premium price to get actually good stuff now, which is hard.
Yeah, I think the quality of the jerseys are good. When you buy a Nike jersey that's new with a new player, one of the standard jerseys, the quality's good. People seem to be happy with them. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they've developed in this new 12-year partnership, right? This might be something that's more WNBA driven in this 12-year partnership than it is NBA driven at this stage. And I think you mentioned something good with Fanatics and how involved they are. Maybe they're gonna have more of a say in stuff going forward. But creatively, I think it'll still be Nike.
Fanatics is good at the infrastructure. I will say, like, their actual quality of stuff is pretty poor. Like the designs are like,
I don't know. It's funny in business, right? When you're a business that takes over the contract from another business, it just sort of seems to be understood that the last business had no good ideas, right? And we can all say Adidas with the Christmas Day jerseys, great idea. And Nike took it over and they said, nope, everything Adidas did was trash. We're not doing any of it because for whatever reason, these companies are too proud to do something that the other team did. Now, maybe there's some sort of clause in something or legally, like there's trademarks or something on Christmas Day jerseys, but maybe that's all it is. But bring something back, and I think bring something back for the fans. I think that's totally fair, and enough time has gone by between the Adidas era and the Christmas Day jersey eras that if you were Nike and you were to bring something like that back, it would be really cool. At the same time, maybe instead of Christmas Day jerseys, what's the other biggest day of the year for the NBA in terms of its showcase? It's Martin Luther King Day. Could you do something festive around Martin Luther King Day that celebrates everything that day means to the black community and the basketball community and all those things? I think you can, other than, again, these ugly-ass City Edition jerseys that everybody wears on these biggest stages. I would either go back to traditional jerseys or throwbacks on these things for, like, Christmas, and then maybe there's something else you could do around the other parts. But you know what? It's just a logo on a jersey at the end of the day.
It's true. It's ultimately like a lesser thing, but this business is a business story for the league and the WNBA. I'm quite fascinated by it. But on today's show, we've got some business to get to in terms of the various rookie extensions that got done ahead of the season start. We're going to give our best and worst of those that got done. And then it's prediction time. We're going to do MVP, Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Eastern Conference winner, Western Conference winner, and pick our title winner. That's on today's episode of the Just Basketball Show.
Oh, a spectacular move by Michael Jordan. LeBron James with no regard for human life.
What is up, everyone? Welcome in to the Just Basketball Show. I'm Chris Manning. That is Wes Goldberg. If you haven't already, follow, rate, review on your podcast app platform of choice. Hit subscribe on the Just Basketball Fans YouTube channel. And check us out on TikTok, Instagram, and X. And Wes, we have support today from BetMGM as well.
Support for today's episode of the Just Basketball Show comes from BetMGM. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code JustBasketball, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android and sign up using the code JustBasketball. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you're going to receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bet if the bet loses. Just make sure to use bonus code JustBasketball when you sign up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older to wager. Terms and conditions apply.
Wes, let's get into extensions. We've got a bunch to get through. We're going to do best and worst. So here are the deals and how I'm going to categorize them. And then let's go best first, and then we'll do worst second. Trey Murphy, 4 years, $122 million with the Pelicans. Jalen Suggs, 5 years, $150 million with the Orlando Magic. Corey Kispert, 5 years, $54 million from the Wizards. Jalen Green, 3 years, $106 million with Houston, with a player option for year 3, which per Shams in his ESPN write-up, that's the first time a rookie scale extension has featured a year 3 player option. So something notable there in terms of deal structure. And then with the Warriors, I'm going to lump these two together. Moses Moody, 3 years, $39 million, and Jonathan Kuminga, no contract. Obviously, a bunch of other rookie scale extensions did get done earlier in the summer, but we're reacting to the ones that have happened right now.
I'm sorry, right before we started recording here, we got two more.
Hit the buzzer, Wes. We need the noise.
Jaden Hardy, 3-year, $18 million extension.
Okay.
And, most importantly, Alperen Şengün.
Oh!
Alperen Şengün, trying to find the exact details here, where'd it go? Sorry, I had it up.
Wes is hallucinating extensions now. Are we worried about this? What's going on here? Well,
yeah, maybe a little bit. I had the things up. We can edit this out. 5 year, $185 million for Alperen Şengün.
Okay. All right. Wes, I'm gonna go. Let's go best first. I'll
Okay.
I'll give you a second to calm down to whatever psychedelics you've ingested before we did the show, which is actually just getting prep for the NBA season and looking at every spreadsheet possible. My best is the business Houston did. I was gonna give this regardless, even before we knew the Sengun news. But to start with Jalen Green, I think that's an appropriate deal for both sides, and I love that they found a middle ground on that extension. I love that we have a rookie scale extension for a former top 5 pick who hasn't, blown the doors off of anyone. He's been like an interesting player with a lot of upside, I think, still left to figure out. I love that they didn't say we're not doing anything, where like he might get kind of screwed by restricted free agency. And I love that the Rockets didn't go full out and just give him everything because they felt like they had to give their top pick all this money. I think that was the Jalen Green extension is one of the most practical NBA contracts I think we've seen in a while. And I think then getting Sengun for 5 years and, not max, but a ton of money for a guy that I think is their best young player. I think this is a good bit of business for Houston. It gives them some flexibility still with Jalen Green. It gets their most important piece in Sengun locked up, and I think everything they did here just makes a ton of sense.
I'm not sure. I think I agree with maybe 50%
Okay.
of your take there. So, in terms of what the best deal is in terms of these rookie scale extensions are, the best player on this list is Alperen Sengun.
Yeah.
And to get him at an average annual value of $37 million is pretty great. To me, that Jalen Green extension is the most confusing of all of these. I don't really know what to think, and nobody knows what to think. This is the riskiest one of this entire group. That's $30 million a year for a player who, thus far in his career, his production on the court is maybe worth a third of that. Maybe. He's been a bad NBA player. Besides like the one stretch for last year, he's inefficient as a scorer, offers nothing defensively, is very raw as a playmaker, but there's flashes, and everybody falls in love with the flashes. And because of those flashes, the Rockets are using this contract to project what they hope. I don't even know if it's what they think is going to happen, but certainly what they hope is going to happen. So there's a world where this time next year, Jalen Green has the worst contract in basketball. There's also a chance that he has one of the best contracts in basketball.
Yeah.
This year it was already really important for Jalen Green, and now it's even more important. I guess my confusion is, why? Why did you do it now? Maybe there is a belief internally in that organization that, hey, they're going to get a deal on this, right? Because if Jalen Green balls out this year, then maybe he's worth $40 million a year instead of $30 million a year. So, yes, you have that optionality. It's the player option in that third year. It's a little bit shorter than Sengun, who's a 5-year deal. And all that stuff gives you an out. But, man, it's still, you're on the hook 3 years, $30 million plus a year for a guy who just, frankly, has not been worth that so far in his career. It's risky, and I don't think that there's any way around that.
I think there's obviously risk, but where I think I disagree with the being like, I'm not really worried about this deal because, number one, it's pretty short. 3 years in this NBA is like not really a long time. Like, it's just not. And he would have to be...
It is if you're building, though. Like, it is if you're trying to build towards something and you want the flexibility to add onto this roster. That I would argue that.
So I think that's fair. But I would also say that $30 million plus all of the stuff they have to trade suddenly becomes like that's a contract you can use for something. Even if you're paying a tax on it to move it as part of a bigger star trade, you don't have a $30 million salary that isn't one of your other core pieces that you need to trade, which is not a bad place to be if you're Houston. You're just creating figures on a spreadsheet to maybe trade in a year or 6 months or in 2 years. On the other hand,
But he might not be tradable.
But I think the idea would be if it's $30-something million and you're trading to a team that's rebuilding, that can tell themselves and sell that they got Jalen Green, who, by the way, signing this at age 22, and I do think year 2 of Udoka and all this stuff will be a really good test case for him. We're in agreement there that this is a huge year for him and what he's going to be. You can, like, sell... Jalen Green has not had, I think, to, like, the casual fan, had... like the rub of the sheen of him exactly rub off. Like it has been a unique path to get here in a lot of ways. G League Ignite to Houston when it was kind of a mess, to Houston kind of cutting him off from having like the full traditional kind of scale up experience with all the veterans they brought in, bringing in a whole new coach that was one of the most I think highly thought of coaches in the league before he left Boston. I think this is just like a middle ground. Like yes, we're still paying for potential, but we are not paying so much that it's exorbitant and it's like relatively a short deal. Like 3 years, 2+1. You can. I think you can. That's
I just
not
would rather
an
not done it.
albatross.
I don't know. I would have just rather not done it. Sometimes it's okay to just not do something, but
Yeah.
not doing it is also
made
an
me
organization
do
sort of
this.
admitting that they
Yes.
didn't necessarily hit on that pick. You see all of his contemporaries that are in that class signing their extensions, so maybe Houston felt some pressure to get it done. Maybe they didn't want to risk Jalen Green being unhappy. Maybe they didn't want to risk him losing him for nothing or as a restricted free agent next year. You're probably right where they see this and they say, you know what? At the end of the day, this is a tradable, chunky contract that we can move somewhere else, and we won't have to lose Alperen Şengün or something like that to go make that big deal. But they still have guys like Dylan Brooks. They have the Steven Adams contract. Like, if they wanted to move something, they could. It's very risky. But you know what? Scared money don't make money.
Yeah,
So,
we're also in an inflated contract world where I just think we're gonna have to get used to some of these numbers. Like I was reading about Josh Giddey apparently he didn't get a deal done, but he wants like $30+ million. Like that's and it's just like, I'm sorry, Josh Giddey, you're not worth $30+ million.
but Josh Giddey in his career has been a better player than Jalen.
Yes, but it's still that's actually a good point. But it's still just like, I think some of these numbers are just gonna feel bigger and weirder to us now in the salary cap world.
Green.
In
We
the
have one
money-
more
yeah.
rookie scale extension to announce that came in just under the 6 p.m. Eastern time
right.
wire.
Hit the-
Jalen Johnson and the Atlanta Hawks agreed to a 5-year, $150 million contract.
Oh, is that my winner? Is that now my winner? I think I got to stick with my take. Hold my boots in the sand here and buckle down. But I do
So-
quite like that contract for Atlanta.
I'm glad they were able to get it done.
Didn't seem like they would.
It looked like it wasn't going to happen, and then one of the two sides caved, and I guess we'll get a story on this within probably the next 24 hours. But $30 million a year, 5 years for Jalen Johnson. I like the length of that. It's a nice contract for Jalen Johnson. I think everybody loves Jalen Johnson, especially NBA Twitter. And when everybody loves a guy, I tend to be a little bit more cynical. But when you watch him, you love what he does. But the injury last year was real. We're talking about half a season of production. Again, based on what we saw, awesome deal, right? He looks like a cornerstone piece for whatever it is that the Hawks are doing next. We still have a half of a year of production to go off of, so TBD on that. But I do like the deal. It's a clean deal, and I think it's a good one. Shout out to my guy Jalen Suggs in the Orlando Magic, getting this thing done. 5 years, $150 million. I don't know if it's my best one. I'm just it's my favorite one, right? Like This is the one I was like, the Orlando Magic, you're hanging your hat on defense, you're building the whole thing on your defense, and your most important defender, in my opinion, with all due respect to Jonathan Isaac, who plays 18 minutes a game for 30 games a season, their most important defender is Jalen Suggs. And to make sure that you have him at a $30 million annual value, where I think next year, had he been a restricted free agent, somebody would have paid him more, because I think his skill set, while it might not be the most valuable skill set in the NBA, it's certainly the hardest one to find, which is guards who can defend their position at an elite level. And Jalen Suggs is that guy, right? He's Drew Holiday. He's Derek White. He's Lou Dort. He's like one of those guys. So to have him under contract for 5 more years is huge for what is the Orlando Magic are doing. Here's my best deal, though. The no deal for Jonathan Kuminga.
Yeah.
That's the best out of all of these extensions. It's the not extension. Sometimes what you don't do is as important as what you do. All right? I think this is what I would have wanted the Rockets to do with Jalen Green. It's okay to say, we need more information. I don't know. I don't know what you're worth, and I'm not even really sure. You could be a $15 million player. You could be a $40 million player. And within the year, we hope to learn that. The Warriors, I think, holding their ground on Jonathan Kuminga, who has made it known for basically 12 months now that he wants a huge extension. And maybe ultimately what happened was Jonathan Kuminga was never willing to come down to $30 million a year the way that Jalen Green was, and willing to do a shorter term deal the way that Jalen Green was. Had Kuminga said, hey, I'm good, 3 years, $106 million, player option in that third year, let's keep it short term, maybe the Warriors would have just done the same thing and said, you know what, screw it, let's just get this thing done. But the fact that they didn't do anything, I think it's a great move for the Warriors. I think they're going to learn a lot about who Jonathan Kuminga is. He's still eminently tradable between now and the end of the season. That's something that could really help them if they are trying to make that big move and they have enough of these chunky contracts that they're actually trying to get off of, that it didn't make sense for them to add another $30 million contract that would have been untradeable in this year. And I think that's a big part of what they're doing right now is, hey, this is our trade piece, and we can't lock him up and make him untradeable for a year. So I just like I like the flexibility that they maintained. It's not flexibility that Houston has anymore because Green can't be traded while he's during the first year of this extension. So the Warriors, they kept their powder dry, and I like what they did. And also adding Moses Moody, getting him at 3 years, $39 million, just something about that mid-level. I think that's a clean deal for the Warriors. There's no way that they're going to regret that one. Moody might end up playing a bigger role than Kuminga this year, depending on how this thing plays out. But according to the reporting from The Athletic and others, Jonathan Kuminga is going to be starting on opening night for the Golden State Warriors, so they're still invested in his future. I think the Warriors would love, best case scenario, to regret not having signed him this summer. I think the Warriors would love that to be an outcome here. But they don't know that that's going to be the outcome. And I think what they did was responsible, and I love that they didn't do anything on that.
Yeah, I think with Kuminga, I look at him and I think that that's a guy who the Warriors don't know if he's on the Warriors team that gives Steph Curry the best chance at another title. I think that's how I'm looking at this. I don't think they know that yet. And I think every dollar they spend now, with how expensive Steph is, with how expensive Draymond is, every dollar they have has like obviously an added cost just because of where they're going to be at salary-wise. This is going to be a really expensive roster down the stretch run of Steph's career, so any kind of flexibility they can maintain to give themselves the best window, if that's 1 year or 2 years or whatever, like one more shot for Steph, this to me makes sense. This to me makes all the sense in the world from that perspective. And Moody at like what's going to be sub mid-level exception money is like just really good value for a solid if unspectacular player. It's dissimilar, different end of the spectrum, Wes, but we're like 6 months away from a good team trading for Corey Kispert and it just being like a smart business decision. Mm-hmm. Like, can the Cavs do Niang and like another salary and get Kispert? Can like a team who just needs like a wing shooter go get Kispert at like really cheap money for 5 years? Like that's like a really practical contract just to have. It's like it's the same reason I like the Moody one is why I like Kispert, because you just got role players at below mid-level money, and you can either keep them or you can trade them for something good, I think.
Yeah, look, I think all of these guys were sort of, I think you look at a guy specifically like Corey Kispert, considering what his situation is in Washington as a guy who could get traded. The Trey Murphy thing is really interesting to me. 4 years, $112 million. What is that annually? That's a little bit, 25? Something more
25 plus. It's above 25.
I'm not good at math, but
that's why it's like 23, I think, is 23. Yeah, 23
I think it's a
million.
great deal for the Pelicans, especially if the high end of Murphy works out, where he's just one of the top 3-and-D players in the league. Like for everybody who wanted Mikal Bridges and didn't get him, start looking at Trey Murphy because it's the same sort of deal.
It also made me wonder what that means for Brandon Ingram. Like, is there like Ingram movement somewhere or another? Like, I still think they're more going to try to move off Ingram if they can. Well, so let's go to the worst one to these. I think are you going to say Jalen Green is the worst one for you?
I thought it was. Yeah. Other than that,
okay.
I don't have a problem with any of these. I'm not sure I know why they did the Jaden Hardy thing for Dallas, but it's pretty harmless.
It's like
kind of it was the most random of all of these.
It's just, $18 million over 3 years is like a drop in the bucket as far as salary goes. Yeah. I would say there's two that I look at the figures and I think it's just my brain. It's just like still like shock reaction to the annual figure for what these guys go for now. Even though I love Jalen Johnson and like I already said I like the contract, him and Suggs, I both look at $30 million and it's like that's just like a lot, particularly for Orlando. I think like I wonder where else they squeeze on the roster, because they extended Wendell Carter, they're paying Franz, they're gonna pay Paolo. Like is Orlando just gonna spend in perpetuity? Like that makes me wonder. I think you had to keep Suggs, but I wondered, is this the best flexibility path? Is really the question. I don't really have any of these that I hate. It's really, or I don't like, it's really like I'm wondering, or this begs questions to think about a couple situations. Like Orlando, I think what your flexibility is for, again, New Orleans, what happens with Brandon Ingram. For the Warriors, you mentioned like what ultimately happens with them chasing a title for Steph. Rockets, obviously, we've gotten into. Jalen Johnson, is that like, it's him and Trey are really the main thrust of everything that's going on there right now, you think? I think there's a lot of these. At the dollar figures really beg questions about how you build now, I think is where we get to. They're interesting if these guys are just who we think they are. These just become roster building questions more than do I like this contract questions. Yep. All right. Do predictions now. Wes, one last thing I actually ask you about the Rockets thing, just because I'm thinking about Sengun's deal now that we're looking at it. Can he be the best guy for them when they get to wherever they want to end up? Like if they want to be like a legit playoff team in 2 years, is he the best guy in this team still?
A legit playoff team?
Like if they want to be a legit playoff team and like bump
Yeah.
up another 2 tiers, is he the best guy in the team in 2 years if and when that happens?
Yeah, I think the playmaking five who can rebound, score, and get others involved, that's been proven out to be a functional formula for a playoff team, even if he's Domantas Sabonis. I mean, we've seen the floor that Domantas Sabonis provides the Sacramento Kings, and even before that, the Indiana Pacers. Like, in terms of a championship team, then I have my questions. At that point, I have my doubts. I think there's real concerns about him defensively. And moreover, when you start comparing a guy to the best player in the world, chances are he ain't going to be that. And it kind of takes Nikola Jokic being Nikola Jokic to make the Denver Nuggets a championship contender,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
It took that ascension from Nikola Jokic. And so to expect that from Şengün, I think, is probably ill-advised. And by the way, I don't think the Houston Rockets are planning on that. If that happens, great. But, they've got a lot of young guys that they hope blossom, and maybe one of them pops into that top dog on a championship team. But for now, yeah, I think Şengün is, to me, he's more floor raiser than ceiling raiser, but those guys are just as valuable.
Before we get to predictions, I got to tell you about our friends at Homage. Homage is the ultra-comfortable specialty apparel company with NBA and WNBA licenses that uses vintage-inspired designs to pay homage to the greatest stories, traditions, and figures across sports, music, and popular culture. Use the link below to make your purchase and support the Just Basketball Show. Exciting news. We've been teasing this on the show, but we do have a giveaway with our friends at Homage. The New York Liberty won the WNBA title, and we're doing a giveaway for their entire New York Liberty WNBA Finals collection. That is an WNBA Jam t-shirt with Sabrina Ionescu and Brayden Stewart. It is their championship t-shirt, and it is their championship crew neck sweatshirt. So all you're going to do, we're going to have a post up over on X right now when you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube. You follow us at Just B-Ball Fans. You follow at Homage. You retweet the post, and you respond to that post, and you predict who wins next year's WNBA title. Who wins the 2025 WNBA title? Do those 3 things, you're entered to win. You could win the entire giveaway, entire package from Homage, which you can check out the post or on their store to see what it looks like and see if you're interested. And remember, use the link below if you want to just go buy it. Use the link below. Some of that support comes back to support the Just Basketball Show. Wes, prediction time. Let's go MVP. I'm going to go with Luka Doncic. I just think this is going to be a year where I don't think Dallas is going to necessarily be the best team, but I think that's probably a top 4 or 5 team in the West. I think Luka is going to just put up monster numbers. I think last year's playoff run kind of put him in this conversation as just a guy that's going to get an MVP at some point. That kind of solidified something I think we already thought was going to happen. I think this could go a bunch of different ways. It could be Jokic. It could be SGA. Like, you could convince me of a bunch of different guys. But I'm going to go with Luka Doncic as my MVP.
So, just sort of to preface here, I think there's 4 or 5 guys that most people would consider the early favorites for this thing. And that's Luka, Shea, Jokic, and Anthony Edwards. And I think most people are saying, probably not Joel Embiid's year, right? Considering what we know about his rest plan here.
I don't think he's going to be really. I don't think anyone thinks he's going to be eligible. Is what it feels like. He's going to play 50 games and just not be in the running.
Exactly. And you know what? I think there's a couple other names that we should definitely not overlook: Giannis, Jalen Brunson, Jason Tatum. All those guys should absolutely be part of this conversation. But I do think it's going to be Luka. That's the guy. I'm with you on this. I think it's the safest pick. I think we want to give it to him.
Yeah, that's really why I did this. It's like I don't think anyone wants to give Jason Tatum a major award. I think everyone wants to give Luka Doncic.
I think we're about and on I agree with you on the Tatum front, but I think that's about to flip because I think we're going to have enough sort of Boston media mafia inspired hand wringing about, oh my God, this team is so disrespected. It's like, whatever. You won the championship.
Well,
Who
did
cares?
you by the way did you see this Joe not to derail us in Boston Celtics Mafia corner, but did you
I'm
see
happy to do
did you see the Joe Mazzulla quote about why he doesn't feel pressure from the media? Did
No,
you see
what did he
this?
say?
So he said you can watch the clip. I'll send it to you because it's worth watching Joe Mazzulla talk and sound like an absolute crazy person. But here's the crux of the quote. Quote, they don't have a weapon. They're not going to come after me. They're just saying words. We're either going to win or we're not. 40 years from now, none of you are invited to my funeral, and that's it. Just like absolutely the coldest, most psychopathic shit from Joe Mazzulla.
You know what,
it's like
Joe
kind of
Mazzulla?
why he's a great NBA head coach, if I'm being honest. It's like why he's like good is because he has this weird energy.
The pencil is mightier than the sword, Joe Mazzulla. Just
Yeah.
want to say.
What about the podcast mic though?
Hey.
yeah.
This thing could hurt. It could give you a bruise in the noggin, man.
Yeah, it's true. It's a
But I am
little
going
heavier.
Luka, and I'm going with a prediction on this Luka Doncic thing. So,
Ooh.
like I said, I think we want to give it to him based on the finals run that the Mavericks made last year, how sensational he is, the fact that he is pushing Nikola Jokic as best player in the world. And for the record, and there is a podcast video record on our YouTube page about this, he should have been the MVP last year, and the
Yeah.
fact that we weren't talking about it, I think, was the biggest snub. It was like, is it Jokic or is it SGA? And I made a 15-minute video laying out why Luka Doncic has had a better season than anybody else in the league, and I believe he was robbed last year. And I think a lot of people have come to that conclusion, at least subconsciously, and said, this guy is at the height of his powers. He needs to have one. I think Jokic, to get this thing, is going to have literally the greatest season of all time. To get 4 MVPs in 5 years, and this isn't right, but it is just the way it is because humans vote on this thing. We're not going to just give it to him. There's only one person in NBA history who ever won 4 and 5, and that's LeBron James. I think we all love Nikola Jokic. We think he's on pace to be an all-time great. Do we think he's on pace to be the greatest ever? I'm not sure we're there yet. And so I think the bar for him is going to be really high. So I just have him off my board completely. I think so. Here's my Luka Doncic prediction. I think he's going to win MVP. I think he's going to lead the league in scoring this year. I also think he's going to lead the league in assists this year. And I think that's a really strong narrative and statistical case. There is literally no player more important to their team because he scores all the points and he makes all the passes. And by the way, he might be the best player in the planet right now.
Yeah.
He was third in assists per game last year behind Tyrese Halliburton and Trae Young. You add Klay Thompson to that mix, a full year of PJ Washington, I think the shot making on this team is just tailor-made for, 50% of Luka's passes are going to end up in a quality bucket. Derek Lively, just lobbing it up to him. Daniel Gafford, full year of him. I think this guy has so many weapons. This is Patrick Mahomes with Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. I think we're going to see one of the best offenses in league history here. And Luka's going to be obviously the quarterback of it. Yeah, to me, it's Luka. I think it's his MVP to lose, quite frankly, based on what we know about NBA history. And shout out to Tim Bontemps. He made this case on his ESPN podcast this week, but said, you know what, the MVP case doesn't really start in October. It tends to start in April, June, in the NBA Finals when we start to see who's taken that next step. It's why Anthony Edwards is a part of this conversation now, right? Because of the run that him and the Timberwolves made last year too. So I'll go with Luka.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to go. Let's go to Rookie of the Year. Next up. I am so disinterested in Rookie of the Year. I just, it's just...
I have a proposal for Rookie of the Year this season.
Okay.
Let Chet Holmgren and Brandon Miller battle it out. Because one of those two guys got so overshadowed by Victor Wembanyama, and rightfully so, because Wemby was so sensational. But the fact that one of those guys won't have a Rookie of the Year trophy, and some schmuck from this year's class is going to have one, we should have a version in the NBA where we say, you know what, this rookie class is just not as good, so let's give 2 Rookie of the Year awards to the last rookie. And you know what, we should eliminate Chet Holmgren because he was a fake rookie last year anyway, so we should just give it to Brandon Miller.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw it out the window and go Stephon Castle. I have no faith in this. I'm just going to
you stole my thing. So, yeah, so basically
okay,
not
you know what?
since
Okay, no, if
you
you're...
go Stephon because I actually changed mine. So
Okay.
I went Stephon. I did some sort of preseason ballot for, I forget who. I filled it out. And I put Stephon Castle, and in my research, I saw, not since 2017 has somebody outside the top 4 won Rookie of the Year. And so I know there's a lot of people saying Zach Edey and some other players and whatever. And Zach Edey is the odds-on favorite on BetMGM and all these other sports
it's
books.
a very logical. It's a very logical case for Zach Edey. It is just like stats, winning team.
Yep.
Guy we know. Give him Rookie of the Year.
If I had to put money on it, I would go Edey. I would. But I don't have to put money on it, and I just have to make a bold prediction here. And so I'm actually going to go crazy and say Rookie of the Year is going to be the #1 pick, Zachary Reese-Shea. How about that? Because nobody's talking about him as the Rookie of the Year, and he was the first pick in the draft. But his preseason, he looked really good, and I'm actually impressed. I am a well-documented Reese-Shea hater. Okay, like I didn't like that pick from the Hawks. I thought it was crazy that they went in that direction. I don't know what they saw. Turns out they knew more than I did. That guy looked good in the preseason. Now, it's just preseason, but he's going to get the minutes. He's already going to be starting. The role is going to be there. I think he's going to get the shots. I think Trae Young is going to create a lot of open looks for him. There is going to be instances where he's just played off the court because he's so small. Like Slight. Like he's tall, but he's skinny, right? And he's not strong enough against NBA bodies. But I don't know. What if he averages 15 points per game, that might be the leader among all rookies, and that might be just enough.
Yeah, and if the Hawks are like in the play-in or like have an unexpected good year, like and he contributes to it, you can make a narrative case there. I look forward to it. Yeah, I look forward to it being like none of that. I look forward to it just being like Reed Shepherd or just something entirely.
Yeah, it's like Reed Shepherd is going to be the best one, but he's not going to get the minutes and the production. It seems like that's why people are hedging on that.
Yeah, it's tough. All right, let's go to Coach of the Year. I think a lot of ways you could go with this one, Wes. I think it really kind of depends on like where you want to, put your energy in, and depending on a different conference. I'm gonna let you go first in this one. Where'd your head go?
So this is the hardest one to predict because we don't have a new coach on a good team this year, right? Like all the new coaches
we do.
Where?
Kenny Atkinson.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
But like
the Cavs. Okay, fair enough. I should say we don't have. So the Cavs won 50 games last year.
We don't have a new coach on like a title contending team.
Well, and if Atkinson and the Cavs win 60 games this year, he'll get it.
Yeah.
Okay, but like the bar is pretty high already in Cleveland. Like JB Bickerstaff did a fine job there. It's not like when Mike Brown took over the Kings and it was like 20 years of not making the playoffs, and then they got to the playoffs.
There's not a narrative for you to swing there. No,
unless like there's a Charles Lee situation where the Hornets somehow win 48 games or something. It doesn't really seem that that's in the cards. And even with the team like the Grizzlies, with Taylor Jenkins there. No, I don't know how much credit he's going to get if they end up in the top 4 because they were just there and everybody recognizes, Ja Morant didn't play last year. You had all these injuries last year. That's why you weren't in there. So, although I think he can get some love, and that might be an easy one to go. So, this is the hardest one. And it feels like a lot of the guys who have won, or a lot of the coaches at the top of the league, coaching the top teams, have already won, whether it's Mark Daigneault, Tom Thibodeau. Like it's just kind of hard to win this thing all the year.
I know where you're going with this. I think I know where you're going with this.
There's a case to be made for Joe Mazzulla, and I'm telling you, we don't have to do the Boston Media Mafia thing again. But hey, here we are. We're gonna do it since I brought it up.
Just not where I thought you were going.
Joe Mazzulla did not win Coach of the Year last year because, in part, Brad Stevens won Executive of the Year. Right? He added Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis. There was still like the fumes of adding Derek White a couple years before that. Everything that they did to assemble the greatest ensemble of talent in the NBA currently. That's why Joe Mazzulla doesn't win it. And you're already starting to see, you're feeling the bubbles. Hey, Joe Mazzulla didn't get enough credit. 57 wins and 64 wins last year. All the guy does is win. All the guy has had is the best roster in the league by far. Like, I'm not saying that Joe Mazzulla is not a good coach. I actually think he has been quite underrated. I think he's a top 10 coach. But can we wait to throne this guy as the best coach in the NBA until he coaches more than 2 seasons, 3 seasons, and doesn't have the most talent in the NBA? Just because if you didn't win it one year because you had the most talented roster, you don't get it to win it the next year when you still have the most talented roster, right? Just because Brad Stevens won Executive Year a year ago doesn't mean that it's not still a valid thing the following year. So let's cool down on the Joe Mazzulla stuff. Here's my vote for Coach of the Year. Here's my prediction. And I don't even know if I believe this, but I'm trying to manifest it. I'm trying to speak it into reality. Eric Spoelstra does not have a Coach of the Year award on his resume. This might be the year to give a Lifetime Achievement Award. If it's so difficult to find a legitimate Coach of the Year, I want to start putting it out there. It's okay to give it to Spo because we all know he's the best coach in the NBA. Every GM votes it for 2 years in a row. It's crazy that this guy doesn't have it. If the Heat end up a top 6 seed in the East, he should absolutely get it.
I'm agreeing with you on this. This is where my head is going as well. But this is my logic thinking about this. Number one, the two best coaches to be in the league are Spo and Ty Lue. I don't think the Clippers are going to be good enough for Ty Lue to get that recognition this year. I think the Heat have a better chance of doing something positive to get him in that conversation. The guys that I think are potential competitors for this award, because guys don't usually win it twice in a row. It's even like, Popovich in 12 and 14 was split up by George Karl, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Dagnall's probably not going back to back. Mike Brown, I don't think the Kings are going to be quite there. Monty Williams 1 and 2 years ago is out of the league right now. Tom Thibodeau just won it in 2021. Nick Nurse won it in 2020. Bud won it in 2019. I think we're good. I think you've laid out the great case for Spo. I think it's Spo. I think it's someone like Atkinson. I could see it being a JB Bickerstaff getting some love. The Pistons, of our beloved Detroit Pistons, Wes, have a run of some kind or something. But I'm going with Spo as well. It just feels like this lines up for there to be a window for Spo to get it.
Yep.
It'd be very funny if Doc Rivers won it. We just circle all the way back. Defensive Player of the Year. Are we both going Victor Wembanyama? Are we just?
I'm not.
Oh, are you going Bam?
So first of all, I'm not really sure where I'm going on this, but I think Victor Wembanyama might be the worst bet.
He is the worst bet because
there's no value there.
No, the best bets are like Mobley, Jaren Jackson, Bam, Gobert. Just pick any.
So here's where I'm at. How bad can the Spurs be defensively for Victor Wembanyama to still win this thing?
Let me look up what they were in defense last year.
Oh, they were terrible. They were like 21st.
Yeah, I know they
or
were.
something.
I want to give people the real numbers.
They were.
Cleaning the glass. Load faster, please.
Won't clean the glass. It's one that loads the slowest.
I love the most valuable site that takes forever.
So, I have the Spurs 21. Yeah, man, I called that 21 on NBA stats. So 21 in defensive rating last year. They add Chris Paul and they add Harrison Barnes. Now, Chris Paul, not the defender he used to be at that position. Harrison Barnes, not the defender he used to be at the position. But veterans who know where to be. They know how to, communicate defensively. I think San Antonio will be a better team on defense this year. They had 112.8 defensive rating with Victor Wembanyama on the court. 109.6 with Vic and Devin Vassell on the court. That is right there in the top 10 mix. I just Victor Wembanyama is not going to be on the court all the time. And if they're what they were without him, which was 121.4 defensive rating with him off the court, which is awful. I mean, That's not even playing defense. If they're like 12, 13, I mean, it's better than what they were last year. But are we really going to give the anchor of the 12th best defense in the league defensive player of the year, even if we all agree that he's the best defensive player on the planet? I just don't know that the voters have behaved that way historically. And so I understand that he's the best defensive player on the planet probably already, although I do have a little bit of pushback against that. I still think it's Bam Adebayo, but he's flashy. He makes all the highlights. And again, he has that factor of we kind of want to give it to him already.
Yeah.
But I don't see the value here. And here's the other thing that I worry about with him. The games played situation.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what his durability is. We don't. We have no idea. He's a big man. He's bigger than all the other big men. One foot injury could sideline him for a month. And knock on wood, nobody hopes that happens. But if you're going to make somebody the overwhelming favorite in a league that has a 65-game threshold to even qualify for these awards, I think that's crazy. I would never, no matter who the player is, because you never know with these injuries.
And he went NBA rookie season to the Olympics, back in the he's had a consistent grind, so there's something there. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna pick Bam because I'm gonna pick Bam every year until he wins one.
That's fair. That's my bet too right now, and I think he also has a little bit of a case as we want to give it to him. He won a gold medal. He's got a lot of Q rating going on. The other name that I really like here is Chet Holmgren.
Yeah.
Look, I think when we again looking at the way we award this particular award is we like to go with one of the best defenses in the league, and who's the anchor of that? It's why Rudy Gobert has had so many 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards. Is oftentimes he's the anchor of the best or one of the best 3 defenses in the league. And so I think the Thunder have a really good shot of having the best defensive in the league, even with Hartenstein and being hurt there. There's just enough there. Chet Holmgren is going to be the anchor of that defense, although, they have a lot of really high-end defenders, and that might work against them. Boston's going to be in this mix. I mean, is there a case to be made for Drew Holiday? The Boston Media Mafia has awarded this thing to a guard before. What's to stop them from doing it again? Minnesota still might have an awesome defense, and Rudy Gobert might still get some love for this award. He's plus 1,800 right now for it and absolutely has to be considered. Orlando's Jalen Suggs, Jonathan Isaac have a breakout year in terms of minutes played. Memphis could certainly be back up here with Jaren Jackson Jr. I think there's a lot of guys. But I think if the Heat have a top 5 defense, and they were 5th in defensive rating last year, I think there's going to be a lot of love for Bam in this one. So I'm also going to go with Bam.
Let's go to our conference winners and then our title winners, Wes. I'm going to tell you in the East, I'm picking the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm doing this because I keep seeing the most common pairing, and I was tempted to do this, was Boston, Oklahoma City. I am partially doing this because I just think when something is so chalk, there's got to be some variety here. There's got to be something a little bit more unique than just Boston, Oklahoma City as just like the de facto thing. And maybe the West is the more likely place for us to get something we're not expecting because that's a better conference with much more loaded teams. But I'm just going to put some faith in Philly here. I believe Embiid is that good where he is transcended in that way. I believe that this health thing is going to do him a lot of good. I believe in their whole roster. I believe in Nick Nurse as a coach. I'm going to go Philly to win the East. And they're not going to be the 1 seed. They're going to be like the 3 seed. But I think they're getting out of the East.
I love the pick. I love not going chalk. And maybe we should have made that the segment is, what's your non-Celtics Thunder finals pick? Because It just seems so easy to do that. And I'm with you, man. Like, I see this, everybody go chalk, and so rarely does it happen that it goes exactly the way we expect. And yet it's really hard to make a case that it's going to be anything other than that. Like, I'm like, why doesn't Boston get there? Why doesn't Oklahoma City get there? And the only thing you can come up with is, well, what if they get hurt? But then you can apply that to every team. And those 2 teams have largely been not hurt with the exception of Kristaps Porzingis, who it didn't even feel like the Celtics needed last year. And so it's really hard to come up with the argument against those 2 teams. That said, yes, I'm picking the Celtics because I picked against them in every round last year in the playoffs or something like that. And that's not necessarily true. I picked them over the Miami Heat, and no, that's not even true. I picked them in every round, but I was hating on them, and I picked against them in the finals. So I've learned my lesson. I'm going with the Celtics in the East, but I also do believe that the East is more open than we're giving it credit for. I think you're absolutely right with Joel Embiid and the 76ers. I think they're a team built to maybe be the hammer that breaks the Celtics Swiss movement watch, right? And I think Giannis and the Bucks are very similar. And I know Chris Middleton is out basically indefinitely, it sounds like. But, if he's back for the playoffs and Dame and Giannis are there, I think Giannis is pissed off. I mean, he's already getting into fights with guys in the preseason, and I love that stuff, man. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're getting this version of Giannis, I think we forgot how good Giannis is. It's been 2 straight postseasons that he's not finished now. And I think there's going to be a lot of motivation for Giannis and for the Bucks to get back there. And so you can write down the Celtics and we can make that the official prediction. But for the sake of argument, let's just go with the Milwaukee Bucks here, and then we can get to our West winner.
So you're going Bucks.
I don't know what I'm going with. Don't hold me to any of these. I'm going with the Celtics and the Bucks.
I'm putting a Celtics with a question mark.
Okay, fair enough.
That's going to be on the graphic we post out, I guess.
Okay, good.
Yeah, very official. Well, you can submit a ballot later. We'll commit voter fraud here on the Just Basketball Show. West winner. This is where I am going with the Thunder. Like, this is where I'm going chalk. I think the Thunder are going to be overwhelming. I think the Thunder, at their best, are going to be something that are near impossible to match up with. And I think Shea is one of the best 3 to 5 players in the world. They're going to get Hartenstein back, and that's going to be a great success. I believe in J-Dub. I believe in everything this team has from Chet and all the role guys. This team is deep. This team is good, has an identity. You could make a case that there's like one more level of playoff lumps to go through, but they had the lumps last year, and you bet you they're going to learn from that. This just feels like the Thunder's year. And maybe it's too obvious, but it's just staring me in the face.
So the only reason the Thunder don't get there is if one of Jalen Williams or Chet Holmgren don't really emerge as that number 2 option. They need that. as good as Shea might be, they're very Shea-centric. Like, almost to the degree that the Mavericks are Luka-centric. And Luka needs Kyrie Irving. And Luka needs Kyrie Irving to be good to win the finals, as we saw in the NBA Finals when Kyrie was not good and the Mavericks had got beaten the doors off of by the Celtics. I think Jalen Williams is that guy, for the record. I think he will be that guy this year, but we don't know until we know, right? And same thing with Chet Holmgren. But yeah, it's really hard to pick against the Oklahoma City Thunder. That said, I'm going to do it because I made that my segment here. I'm not my non-Celtics, non-Thunder finals picks. I'm gonna go with. I really would like to go with Jokic and get Jokic versus Giannis in the finals because that would be like an epic clash of titans.
Yeah.
Unlike we've ever seen.
And like no disrespect to these guys, but like something like Shea and Embiid or like Shea and Tatum just doesn't quite have the same like Godzilla punches King Kong in the face energy.
Right, exactly. And I'm rooting for that. That's a great comparison. So screw it. Yeah, that wasn't going to be my pick, but let's do it. This whole MVP, I'm just manifesting it. All right, Nuggets, Bucks. Make that my thing.
I mean, look, I do believe that to some degree we are probably underrating the Nuggets at this point. I think there is like a little bit of a y'all must have forgot energy possible with the Nuggets.
Mm-hmm.
I was also in a fantasy basketball draft on Sunday night where someone drafted Michael Porter Jr. like way too early, and I was just like, what's going on here? You know?
Who's your first overall pick?
I got Wemby.
Oh, good for you, man. What pick did you have?
I had the third pick.
Who went 1 and 2?
Luka went 1, and then someone reached for Tatum at 2.
Tatum at 2?
Yeah, Tatum at 2.
I would understand Jokic maybe, but Wemby, you just won your fantasy basketball league. Legitimately, you just won your fantasy basketball league.
Here's my roster. I'm very in love with this roster.
No, we don't have to do the whole roster.
No, I'm just give you the top. Let's give you the top end. Here's the top end. This is like the guys that are going to be like my regular starters that I feel very good about. And I'll go pick. So I went Wemby. My first 5 picks: Wemby, LeBron, Maxey, Zion Williamson, and Evan Mobley. I feel great. I feel very good about that. I don't know. I always have a problem with fantasy where I think too much about how much I like the guys as players more than like their statistical stuff. But I feel like I did okay there. All right. Title winner. So I have it
with my first pick.
That's good.
Not that you asked, but it's fine.
No, but I should have asked. That was rude of me. Wes. I'm sorry.
Title winner.
Halliburton went viral for very weird reasons this week, which we can discuss off air. That's not for public consumption. NBA title winner. I have a Sixers Thunder finals, and I'm asking for the world to implode, but I'm saying Phillies win it all.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a prediction.
Yeah. Let's will some chaos into the universe, you know?
All right. Well, I have 4 teams in my NBA finals, so this one's a little hard.
You have a one night turn. You have a tournament where they're playing. They each have to play 2 games in one night until.
And I wasn't even going to pick the Nuggets until we talked myself into it, and I was actually going to pick the Timberwolves. But so I could argue I have 5 teams in my NBA finals.
The Julius Randle Finals MVP run that no one is expecting.
You know what? Let's go with that.
Okay.
The Timberwolves win.
Okay, Timberwolves win. I'm gonna replace. I'm replacing the Nuggets on our prediction.
No. Keep the Nuggets.
Oh, the Timberwolves, but the Timberwolves are gonna win.
Yeah. So on the graphic, on social, it'll be Bucks come out of the East, Nuggets come out of the West, and the Timberwolves win the championship.
Yeah, it'll make total sense. Love it. Chaos answers. None of us picked Boston, and it's entirely possible.
We're all gonna be wrong.
It's going to be like they won 63 games and won the title again.
That is
the likeliest outcome.
I think is going to happen, but that's not fun content, and we are here to make fun content, not necessarily to be correct.
Yeah, the Celtics are the rational pick to just dominate the league again this year is where I feel like we are at. So that's where we are. Sixers and Wolves as our title picks, despite Wes not even picking the Wolves to win the Western Conference. Incredible stuff from my guy over there.
Baby.
Parody. It's Lee Adams Silver as always wanted. We'll be back later this week reacting to some opening weekend NBA storylines, giving our takes, and much more to come here on the Just Basketball Show. Remember to go check out our giveaway over on X and give us a follow over there if you haven't already. And also be on the lookout on our YouTube page. We're going to be doing some polls where you can help us shape the content here on the show. Help us decide what you want to hear. So be on the lookout for those on the Just Basketball Fans YouTube channel. Find us, subscribe, rate, review, please, and thank you. Until next time, we'll talk to you.